which or what for relative clauses, so choosing between those. For general principles, for where, you're talking about a place, and you're talking about something that's normally inside, so you're thinking of a preposition, so you've been inside it, and it's usually an active process. So this is the place where I go to school. So you go to school to do things, so it's not just a school that you want to go to, it's somewhere that you are actively involved in. You go inside and it's a place. So the example is the department where I work is cold. So where usually is something that's quite close. If I say, this is the house where I live, it's something very personal to me. This is the place where I work. This is the school where I teach. Quite close. Which, usually you're thinking of more of a distance. So which is a thing or an object, and you are usually the perspective. So if you imagine your eye line, you are outside that thing. So if I said, there is a school which I see on the way to my work, it's far, it's distant. It's not my school, it's not something, it's just something that I see and it's on the way to something else. So it's less important and it's not as active. So we're outside, we're distant, and we're describing it usually. So the school which I drive past is smelly or something. So we're describing it from a distance. We don't know it personally necessarily. So the example here is the cat which I walked past looked cold. So it's not that important. It's not our cat. It has an indefinite article, the. So that further suggests that this is something that we're not that familiar with. It's just something that's outside of us and that we can describe. Okay, so this is where it gets really tricky, and I'm not sure whose picture that is, but Google suggested it for Siem Reap. So this sentence is really tricky because Siem Reap can be all of these different options. So you can use where, but that would suggest all of the things that we've said. So it would suggest that it's your Siem Reap. It's a place that you've been inside, a place that you've been active within. Which, it could also be a which, but that would again suggest that you're further away and they're separate to you. But all are, depending on who's saying it, all are correct. And I'll go through which one might work best for you. And the third one down the bottom here we've got is that. So instead of which, you can use that. And I'll explain. I won't go into too much detail because we're just choosing between those two. But that also works grammatically. So if we read the purple example, one thing that I found really useful for these type of relative clauses, which is a dependent clause, so it relies on the other part of the sentence. If you make it not a relative clause, but instead make it a separate dependent clause and a two-part compound sentence, then I think that makes it a bit easier. So the purple is that. I usually visit Siem Reap, which has many temples within it. So this one, if we remember our general principles, which, what does which tell us again? Let's check. Which is a thing or an object and it's outside of us. So I usually visit Siem Reap, which has many temples within it. So it's like saying that it's something that we know, but maybe we haven't been to the temples or we haven't visited. Siem Reap, which I usually visit, has many temples. The second one, I usually visit Siem Reap where there are many temples. So this one is more involved. So this one is more suggestive that we've been to the temples, we know what's going on, because this is more our place. We've been inside it and we've been active within Siem Reap, not the temples themselves, but it suggests that. Then the last one, I usually visit Siem Reap that has many temples. So you can see this one is probably of the three the furthest away. So for me personally, an Australian man, I would be more likely to say Siem Reap that I usually visit has many temples. So that suggests that me as a foreigner, a Westerner, an outsider hasn't visited the temples. And then the question would be, if you were a person from, say, Phnom Penh, you would probably be more likely to say which of these two. I want you to have a think. Which one would be more likely? So I would say, if I was from Phnom Penh or Kampong Tom, I would be more likely to say the which sentence. So Siem Reap, which I usually visit, has many temples. So that's saying that it's distant to me. If I lived in Siem Reap, I'd be much more likely to say Siem Reap, where I usually visit, has many temples, because I'm more familiar with it. I've traveled there more times. That would be more likely. But that's a very tricky sentence because all three are equally possible but they just suggest slight differences in meaning based on what we know about the general principles of where and which. So hope you found that useful. That to me was quite a challenge to work out late on a Friday night. So cheers.